College football Saturday live here from Las Vegas. I'm Kelly Stewart. This is WagerTalk's last call. We got Art DiCesare from the Westgate Superbook. I guess I could have just walked downstairs and talked to him instead of doing this from my hotel room upstairs. Gianni the Greek, I could have just went over to his house and said hi to him as well. He's going to be checking in between the steam room and last call. And then, of course, we got Mark Zinno. I'm excited. Mark Zinno hasn't been on Last Call with me for a while, but he has been absolutely crushing college football. And that's what we do here. We bring on the best of the best to bring you guys the last little bit of information up until kickoff. 58 minutes until kickoff to be exact. So let's get in some of those last minute bets. Let's get a look behind the counter. Art DiCesare, good morning.
Morning, Kelly. Happy to be here. Really good games today. So we have a better slate, which always equates to more dollars over the counter, which we like.
I love that. Thank you to the Westgate for allowing me to bet a little bit extra on my parlay this weekend because I was in town. I did not know I'd be able to do it over the counter, but Jay Cornegay made a phone call because John Murray decided that somehow during football season taking vacations is acceptable. No days off for Art, though. He hangs out with us on WagerTalk. Even on his days off, he hangs out with Teddy and the Prez on WagerTalk today, and he joins us every single Saturday. So give him a like, give him a thumbs up, tell Art in the comment section how much we love him for bringing us this pivotal information on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, I mean, a lot going on. Let's start with the early stuff, right? Florida money, a lot of Florida money. And it's funny, we had a sharp guy lay Texas 21.5, but we can't overcome all the Florida money, so we'll still need Texas. We took sharp Cincinnati money laying 4.5. We'll need West Virginia in the game. I know a game that you're interested in. A lot of Georgia Tech money at plus 11, plus 10.5, even plus 10. We're now all the way to 9. We'll actually need Miami on the game. Public took some shots with Purdue at plus 38, just thinking it's way too many points. Sometimes the public gets enamored with these big numbers, even though it's Ohio State. So we can't write a bet on Ohio State because no one wants to lay the big number, but people want to take the big number, so we'll need Ohio State to win by margin. Sharp money on Texas State, -8, -8.5, up to 9.5. We'll need UL Monroe in that game. And then the Navy-South Florida game, really interesting. Obviously, the South Florida quarterback, there was a lot of speculation about his injury. Looks like he's doubtful, so he probably won't play. So a lot of early money came in on Navy at -3. We're all the way to 4.5 on that game. We will need South Florida.
Yeah, I too need South Florida. There's been a lot of quarterback controversy this week, and it's been kind of tough. So it's kind of where you got to decide. You're going to bet it early. You're going to wait to get the best of the information. A couple of things went my way, namely South Carolina, and a couple of things didn't go my way, namely the Army quarterback Daly will be in. Richard Lockhart, good morning, Kelly. What dog does Vegas need today? All right, Art, what is the biggest dog that you think you guys are going to need to win outright? Like, who is putting X favorite in every single money line parlay, walking up to the window, betting the money line straight?
That's a good question. I mean, obviously, I mentioned Navy. They're a big favorite. It feels like Colorado's in a lot of parlays, and UConn is also in a lot of parlays. UConn was -7. They're now 8.5 against UAB. So you've seen some good money on those type of favorites. And then another one that's not necessarily parlays, but it's a little bit off the beaten path as well. We had two separate sharp groups coming in lay Marshall -13 against the terrible Southern Miss team, who I believe is 1-7 and have already fired their coach. So Marshall's a big favorite too that kind of keep your eye on. The game didn't move crazy. It was 12.5, 13, now 13.5. It's not like it moved 2 or 3 points, but Marshall has been very popular with the sharp players.
Very interesting. Marshall's been kind of flying under my radar this year. Maybe I should have been paying more attention. Lemon Cake wants to know, hi, Art, any thoughts on Duke versus NC State? And they also want to know about the total, 52.5.
That's actually gone up for us. That was 51. It's shot up a little bit. There's been pretty good two-way action on the side there, so it's split. But you did see over money.
Over money, okay. I kind of lean towards Duke in that one. They did not make my card. I have a very long card this week, Art, because last week I left a few winners off, and I said, you know what? We're just going to decrease some unit sizes, and we're just going all in on Saturday morning. Thoughts on any of these ACC matchups? We already touched on Georgia Tech. You said you guys would need Miami. That is not good news for me. But let's look at Virginia, Virginia Tech, a couple of these other schools, maybe off of a bubble burst like Pitt. Let's walk through some of the ACC action for today because I feel like I have a ton of ACC on my card.
Yeah, the Pitt UVA game is very interesting, and that's been really good split action for us. They laid 7 with Pitt, taking 7.5 with UVA, so we've really been going back and forth a half point on both sides. Really nothing sharp to report on either side. It's just been kind of play on both sides of that, and we always talk about that, bookmaker's dream is to get 50-50 action. It rarely happens. If you book 50 games in a day, you might get it on 2. That is one of the games, though, where it's really good split action, and it really won't hurt us either way, unless the game lands 7. We talk about a number like that. If it lands 7, the 7s get their money back, the 7.5's cash. So if we avoid 7, it's a positive game.
All right, avoiding 7. Let's just get those Cavaliers to win the game outright. Okay, that is the name of the game. Let's talk about some of these other quarterback injuries that I kind of stepped in front of. I really like North Texas. That offense is able to get a ton of plays off and score quickly. Kind of thought Army's quarterback Daly was going to be out. We saw this one get bet all the way down, 3.5, now back up to 6 because he is going to play. Talk to me about how you guys book action on those types of games because I don't have the worst number on North Texas, but I also don't have the best.
Yeah, and Kelly, it's interesting. There was a lot of early money on North Texas early in the week. It's even as high as 6.5. And then you saw it plummet all the way to 3. You saw a total go from like 65, 64.5 to 62. And you're right, North Texas's offense is incredible to go up and down the field. And then basically this morning or late last night, whatever it is, the Army quarterback looks like he's going to play. And then the number basically gets back to where it was. It gets back to 6. The total shoots back up to 65. So, and what you notice too is there are some people, some of our sharp players who obviously we respect who took 6.5 early in the week and then laid 3. Not that it's a crazy middle, but maybe looking for a middle or maybe looking to get off that North Texas bet because the Army quarterback is in play now.
All right, let's move over to the Big 12. Quite a few games on my slate today. You kind of touched on the fact that you think you guys might need Texas Tech, Colorado's, and a lot of money line parlays. But the Holy War really intrigues me here. BYU laying probably, 3 when it opened? I didn't check the odds screen. I apologize. 3.5. Utah hits 4 and gets some money. And I kind of am on board with that. I like it enough to tail my buddy Chris, who gave it to me. I said, all right, fine, I'll jump on board here. But since Utah has kind of had that really, we'll call it lackluster with, Cam Rising being hurt most of the year, they thought they were going to come into the Big 12 and just dominate. There's like a concern me backing them, but man, have I wanted BYU to lose for weeks now. I think they're so fraudulent, yet they just keep winning games.
And this feels like the best spot going on the road. And you're right about that Utah team. Obviously, the quarterback hasn't played, but they were the favorites to win that conference. I mean, basically everyone was putting them in the playoff, betting them to win the playoff. Rising was a dark horse to win the Heisman. So obviously it hasn't gone well for Utah, but BYU sitting there now having to go on the road where obviously they're very dominant at home. But you did see the Utah money come in at 4 and 3.5. And obviously when we got to BYU 3, there was some money there. So this has been pretty good split action as well. But because of all the early Utah money, we'll probably need BYU in the game.
Interesting. Okay. That was a surprise of the morning. Patrick Keelty. Okay, I'm going to screw that up, guys. I'm really great at butchering names. Good morning, Art and Kelly. Thank you for your efforts. Does Indiana keep printing money today? My God. I just said I had enough, Art. I said I had enough. I took Washington. I took Michigan State. I have had enough. What are you guys doing, Kelly, with this Indiana team?
I missed the boat on that one. Indiana is in every money line parlay. That's a favorite that every week they bet. It feels like Indiana covers every week. They win every week. They do their thing every week. And obviously Michigan's way down. Now, there are some people who are going to come in and take Michigan plus 2 touchdowns and just feel, wait. You got to remember, there are people come in for the weekend, they look at the numbers and they go, wait, Michigan, did they win the national championship last year? They're getting 2 touchdowns. Who's Indiana? This isn't basketball. So that happens. But Man, Indiana, and I'll say this, and I'm sure Murray's mentioned it to you. We need Indiana out because we got a lot of liability on them to make the playoff. And if they make the playoff, it's really going to hurt us. We're going to get crushed on that. So we need Indiana to stumble here. Sure, they'll lose to Ohio State, but we need someone else to pick them off too.
Yeah, that would probably be very good for the book to do that. So Michigan money line. If you like Michigan, don't forget to sprinkle. DeFi D's thoughts on Syracuse Boston College. I didn't bring this up during when I was talking about the other couple of ACC games that I liked today. I don't know what to make of the Syracuse team, right? We've seen greatness from Kyle McCord. We've seen 3-pick-6 Kyle McCord. BC, I was fading as a double-digit favorite a couple different times this year. But I do think Bill O'Brien's got this team fairly well-rounded. They do have some glimpses on offense that are kind of exciting. But I just had no real desire to get involved with this one.
Yeah, BC was a darling earlier in the year, and I think it's because they beat FSU. And look at what FSU's become. So it's kind of tailed off a little bit for them. And Syracuse plays wild games. They played a wild game last week. But the early money and the money we've taken has been on BC. We'll need Syracuse in the game.
All right, guys, I got a few more minutes left with Art. If you have a question, please drop it in your perspective chat, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or YouTube. Before you let Art go, Sam Dog says, I need Art to give us his favorite NCAA and NFL play.
Oh, wow. Okay. You know, I don't love this play, but I think the game that I feel best about is Oklahoma, actually. I like Oklahoma in the game. I think they're getting people healthy. They're getting some receivers back. And I don't know. Missouri is a little bit of a fraud to me. Not that Oklahoma's great, but I would lay the 2.5 or 3 with Oklahoma. That, to me, is my favorite college play. And if I'm looking at an NFL play, I'm going under in the Bears game. There's going to be a lot of win. I don't think the Bears are going to score that much with offensive tackles out in that game against New England. New England doesn't score either. That game's got like 17-10 written all over it.
Well, hopefully the Patriots somehow win that game. I needed them to beat the Titans last week for my season win total over. We'll be back here tomorrow talking NFL. So appreciate Art jumping in there, giving us his favorite NFL play, the Bears under. I'll be joining you on that one, but I'm afraid it might have moved a little too much already. Anything else before I let you go, Art, that you want to leave our audience with? Always appreciate you hanging out with us here on Saturdays.
Yeah, let's just throw a couple, other games up that we didn't touch about. That UCF ASU game, real split on that. Laying 2.5 with ASU, taking 3 with UCF. So you've seen a lot there. 2 real sharp plays, which are off the beat path games. Arkansas State's seen a lot of sharp money at 15.5 and 14.5. That's now 14 against Louisiana. And you've also seen some pretty good sharp money on Georgia State at plus 16 and plus 15 against James Madison.
Interesting. Some of those off the beaten path games. Art Dice 21. Make sure you guys are giving him a follow. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing if you're on YouTube. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We're going to go right into it. VR is coming out of the steam room. You got the steam room coming up. Tell me what's going on, VR, with your look there behind your perspective counter.
Yeah, I actually held off the steam room for Sunday, Kelly, where it's a smaller board of like college basketball, NBA, and other things. And we could go over each and every NFL game, talk team totals, talk props, and all of that, because there's just so much going on. In fact, I just bet, I swear to you, 26 college basketball sides and totals over the last 15, 20 minutes. That was just college basketball. So there's college football. I got MMA. It's just a really, really, really busy day. So if you want to dive right in, I could read off some college basketball steam for you guys.
I would love to hear some college basketball. I can walk right downstairs at the Superbook and join you guys. Give me some action because I have not spent any time handicapping college basketball yet. I'm still knee deep in college football. So I'm just going to let you off the leash. Let's hear it.
Thank you. I'm going to give you 3 team totals, first half team totals. These, like I said, I can't release to subscribers because just not enough books offer them, and the lines move a little bit quickly. North Texas under 14.5, first half team total, all the way good up to minus 130. Also Maryland under 7.5, all good up to minus 130, and Florida State under 3.5, good to minus 140. All of those are first half team totals, and remember, it should help you handicap the game. You may have a lean on the side, you may have a lean on the game total. This will let you know that there's some sharp money on the first halves on those team totals. Now, we do have a handful of sides as well. Start off, first full game team totals. Duke under 24.5, good up to minus 130. Ole Miss under 26.5, good to minus 130. And Indiana under 31.5, good to minus 130. And don't forget, they're betting Ole Miss, under team total and betting Georgia. They were able to get Georgia minus 2.5, Georgia minus 2, They were ready to bet Georgia, Kel, at above what it is right now. But it's been public money, I think, coming in on Ole Miss, because the guys that I share info with, none of them came and hit me with an Ole Miss information. So it's got to be public money or some big plays coming in on that Missouri side. Because I can tell you, the Ole Miss side, because we bet Georgia a couple times. Also with Oklahoma as well over Missouri. I just heard Art talk about that. It sets up perfectly, meaning the books will probably need that side. Looking in the back end, it's one-sided on Missouri. Missouri's being teased. I don't know why anyone would ever tease college football to begin with. And then they're teasing this Missouri team up. Again, not a good number to tease regardless, even if it was NFL. But that's what they're doing. Alabama against LSU, any 2.5s earlier in the week. As I explained earlier, they were picking those off. A couple totals under 55.5 UConn UAB, under 45 in Vandy, South Carolina. Now I'm going to read off to you real quickly a bot. This is straight from the bot. Just the football games. I won't give you the college basketball. This is the added board. Columbia plus 10 and over 46.5. That will not be available. Don't even look. 165, South Carolina minus 6. 153, Colorado minus 4.5. 170, North Texas plus 3. 130, Kansas plus 3. And Kansas on the money line. 198, Virginia plus the 7. Bought the hook there. 155, Connecticut plus 7. Bought the hook there. Rutgers plus 7. That's no longer available. I looked for that. 167, Texas State minus 8.5. 132, Georgia Tech plus 10. And the bot hit Oklahoma again. 159, Oklahoma minus 3. So those definite sharp moves. Whether, again, you agree, follow, fade. I just hope you guys make some money off the information. I was a little selective today with my card. I like narrowing in on some of those that I thought offered the most value.
Awesome, VR. That was great. Any college basketball? We got about 90 seconds. Can you rattle some stuff off just for our viewers who tune in with us every single Saturday here on Last Call? We know they're here because they want that gold.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take down the package that I have up for sale there, and I'm just going to give you guys all the college basketball that I fired on, because there's like 26 plays, and I narrowed it down to like the 8 or 9 that were in multiple accounts that I agreed with. 602, Louisville on the money line. 618, Georgetown, good to minus 16. 652, Cal Baptist, good to minus 110. 637, North Dakota, good to plus 8. Canisius plus 10.5, no longer available. Arizona minus 30, no longer available. 605, Wright State plus 5 and plus 4. Extra board, Colgate at Pick'em, Colgate on the money line. Providence minus 24. And finally, just came in before I got on the call, High Point, all the way up to minus 21.5, 22, 23 on High Point. So there's some college basketball for you as well. I'll just take that package down, so anyone watching don't end up being pissed that they bought it and I just gave it all. College basketball first weekend. You gotta hook some people up.
I gotta be able to write faster. I hope all of you guys got all of that. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the show. Fast forward just to get the college basketball again. VR, you are the best. Please let everybody know where they can catch the team room and what you've got going on up at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, I have a 5% that ain't college football. I don't think I fired a 5% since like week 2 in college football. So really zeroed in on a nice total there that's still available. I got a 5% in the NFL as well. 5-1-1 on those. That's for week 10. And again, I got UFC today up over 120 units, double-digit ROI. It's a good time to be involved right now. Head on over to WagerTalk.com, Greek_gambler on social media. And I'm probably going to go live on TikTok to give some second half action for college football and NFL, because I just can't use it anywhere else. So I might as well share that information. Greek_gambler7 on TikTok. Everywhere else, Greek_gambler. Check that out. And again, thanks, Kelly, for sharing some time with me. And I'll be back Sunday. We'll be winding away as well.
I love it. Those Wong teasers will be back. So make sure you guys come hang out with us tomorrow morning at, got to do the Pacific time zone. We're going to be at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm all screwed up here on the West Coast, 9 a.m. Pacific. We will see you guys with VR tomorrow. Bring your questions so we can hit that whole NFL slate. Now we're going to bring in Mark Zinno, my guy. What are we doing this morning, Mark? You have been very red hot in college football, so you get to sit in the guest seat, which means you're going to take all the questions from our audience, and this is 100% based on their participation. If they drop a question, we give them an answer. They don't drop a question, I'm going downstairs to the Superbook to put any last-minute college basketball wagers I just got from VR.
No, not a bad plan. Look, it's a really loaded card here this week. We have been pretty well since the beginning of October, 67% run. So I got 4 plays up today, including 2 4% on the card this afternoon. So go get them right now, wt.buzz/MZ.
MZ, Mark Zinno, we're going to get right into this. If Bama loses, do you think their playoff hopes are over? Yeah, absolutely. No. Zinno, talk to me. No. You're going to let it.
There's a path. Look, they have one of the best wins in the country over Georgia, which you can't take away from them, right? And they will need some help. They will need some other teams to pick up a third loss or at least a second loss. There's a path. I mean, look, I don't think this is a de facto elimination game for either one of these teams. I really don't. I think that when it comes down to it, that Alabama may be a little bit notch above, because what people are going to do is they're going to hang on to that USC loss by LSU and hold it over their heads, even though it was the first game of the season, which sort of defies the better to lose early than lose late theory, which we subscribe to. So, yeah, I don't think it's an elimination game 100%. I think there's a lot of things that could happen. Indiana could fall off, especially after they lose to Ohio State. Even if they lose this week and then lose to Ohio State, they'll be out of it. Same thing for BYU. They could fall out of this thing. I mean, there's a way. We've seen this every single year, Kelly, where it sort of all works itself out and everything is pretty obvious when it's all said and done. So I wouldn't count out either one of these teams just yet.
Oh boy, Mark Zinno, the contrarian. Just because I said they were out, he has to make a giant case to say they're in. Hans Hansen wants to know, I want to play Penn State in the under. Can you please discuss? This is an interesting type of, well, let's just put this part of the season, right? We have undefeated teams. We have teams that have skated by. We have teams that are fraudulently undefeated. We have teams that just got their guts ripped out, right? And I'm playing against all of those teams today, except Penn State.
Yeah, look, I mean, here's the thing. Washington on the road this year has been bad. This is just their 4th true road game at this point. We're at week 10 in college football. But let's just take some quick notes here. At Rutgers, scored 18 points. At Iowa, scored 16 points. At Indiana, they scored 17 points. You see the theme here? Will Rogers' this offense isn't really good on the road. And this is a very capable and adequate Penn State defense. What you have to worry about is the Washington defense, which has been statistically very good. But again, you look at like the Indiana game and the Iowa game, they got mollywopped, man. I mean, they got run over. So that concerns me a little bit in reference to Penn State, who may want some style points here, may want, the strength of victory is mattering to the committee. So, punishing teams and winning by double digits and winning by 2 scores is something that's going to matter. That would concern me with a total of 48, because you have to figure that if Washington gets more than 17, your under is dead. Because I think Penn State easily can get to 30 here. Unless it's just one of those choke them out, 27-7 kind of finals where it sits there. But that's an under that I think would be better off playing in the first half, right? Because if Penn State starts to pull ahead, you have a chance that Washington could score late against some Penn State reserves, or they just keep putting up points. It's one of those things I always say, Kelly, if it's not going under early, it's probably not going under late. Depending on what the number is, I didn't look. But if you're sitting at 24.5 in the first half, I'd be more inclined to play the first half under, that both teams will be putting their best defensive effort forward than the other way. Because, again, if Penn State is up 21-10 at half, guess what? Your under is probably dead.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think ultimately I just didn't trust Washington whatsoever for all of the aforementioned reasons. Because I sure as hell bet against every other team that had their guts ripped out this weekend. Good, bad, it didn't matter. I took the points with Air Force, took the points with Virginia. I'm all for it, but I just could not trust Washington. Jarvis 334. He wants to talk about the total in the Oregon game. He's questioning the under here. Now, we know I don't do a lot of totals, Zinno,
Right.
but I do a lot of underdog searching. And I'm always looking for that elusive underdog that can win outright. And never for 1 second today did I even consider taking Maryland. And that is because Oregon has finally turned up the heat, right? We know exactly what they're able to do offensively. We know what we're going to be able to get from them. And I know that Maryland does not play any semblance of defense, at least not from what we've seen this far. So here's my thought.
I was going to say the other problem with Maryland, Mike Loxley is 7-14 straight up on the road in the Big Ten in his tenure at Maryland. And 3 of those wins came against Rutgers. So this is the only way to beat Oregon is to outscore them. I know that's academic to say, but you're asking to do that against a top 11 defense in the country and an offense that can score more than everybody else. So it's not a formula that bodes well for Maryland. I mean, again, if you want this thing to stay under, Maryland can't get to 17. I think like 14, 16 is their cap by the numbers that I put together, because this Maryland defense should not stop Oregon from scoring 40, unless Oregon just calls the dogs off in the beginning of the fourth quarter and says, hey, we're up 37-7. We're not going to bother doing this anymore. So that's the way I think it goes as far as my numbers are concerned. But, Maryland on the road. And again, this is the first ever meeting between these two teams. Maryland's never flown to Oregon before, ever. So the first ever meeting between these two teams in Autzen Stadium is probably not the environment where Maryland's going to thrive.
I would have to agree with you there. What about Vanderbilt in South Carolina game? Richard Lockhart wants to know. So here's the thing. I laid it. Zinno and I were talking earlier in the week. I said, I'm going to lay 3.5 with South Carolina because that's what contrarians do. You take the ranked team catching points and you fade them. And it worked out well for me last week. And it was hopefully going to work out well for me this week. But here's the issue. Now it looks like Diego Pavia, however you say it. Pavia. I'm really bad at pronouncing names. I think I've pronounced your name wrong at least 100 times during our friendship. But all jokes aside, I don't think you can now recommend giving out South Carolina. But can you recommend giving out Vanderbilt? I don't think so.
I mean, for those who don't know, Diego Pavia is suing the NCAA because he wants to be the Van Wilder of college football and stay there for the next 9 years and beat everybody in college when he's not going to get to the NFL. That said, look, this number is clearly moved, right? It was 3.5 at the beginning of the week. My biggest thing is it's the ultimate letdown spot for South Carolina. I mean, I always have a problem. I don't have a problem with people rushing the field. I have a problem with people rushing the field when it's not required. You beat the number 10 team in the nation. It's not even a rival. Texas A&M, it's not. You ran on the field like it was, winning the SEC, and now you're going onto the road to a team that is hung with everybody and has been upstart the entire year. Vanderbilt on deck. I forget. I think they have somebody on deck. It's a minor look ahead spot for Vandy here. Let me just double check and see who they have next week. LSU. So. They have a bye, but then they have to go to Baton Rouge. So, I just don't like the spot for South Carolina at all. I really don't. Vanderbilt has been too good. They went from this huge environment where they have all these people and they play. Now they're going to a construction site, where it just feels like it could be the ultimate flat spot for South Carolina after what they perceive to be the biggest win of their season against Texas A&M. So, it's Vandy or pass for me. I won't back South Carolina here.
You literally just made me spit out my coffee when you said construction site. Lewis Cody wants to know.
They're still putting the stadium back together.
That's why I laughed.
I mean, there's a crane in the back of the end zone. It's talk about views.
It's real. Florida Gators versus Texas. Lewis wants to know. Now, here's the interesting thing. When Art opened the show, he said, hey, we're going to need Texas. I'm like, wait, what? Florida's not any good. I'd love to fade Texas here. I love when Texas fails because I have under 10.5 wins. But I don't think this is a case where Texas should not just be able to bully around the Gators. I know there's going to be a lot of Gators fans there, but by any means, it's going to still only be, 10% of the stadium.
Right. Right. And look, I mean, here's the thing. There's two things going on here. One, you saw Florida, and they've been improving, right? Like generally, they've been playing a better brand of football the past 3 or 4 weeks. It's not as bad as it started out. Billy Napier is obviously going to hang on to his job, and we'll get to that in a moment. But everybody saw Florida hang with Georgia last week, and Georgia beat Texas, so therefore they should be able to hang with Texas, right? Connect all those dots, and you have some sort of fallacy logic there. The problem here is this for me. Two things. One, when you come out and you announce that your head coach is going to keep his job, which is a weird press release, right? You only announce when they fire him. But there may be a collective sigh of relief from all the players and everything that goes, we've done enough to keep this guy's job. And even the coaching staff, okay, we got the endorsement out loud. Okay, so there's this sort of foot off the gas pedal. But last week was also Florida's Super Bowl. For those who don't know the SEC that well and don't cover the SEC like I do, this is the Super Bowl every year for Florida and Georgia. The cocktail party is the game they cannot lose. And Florida left it all out on the field for 4 quarters to go ahead and beat their rivals, something they haven't done in 4 years since the COVID season was the last time that Georgia actually lost a game, by the way, to a team not named Alabama. Write that down. So they may have left it all on the field. This just may be a game that they can't get up for. And going into Austin and Texas, kind of feeling like maybe it's a pound of flesh game for the Longhorns here, Kelly, where they just take out all their frustrations from everything that's gone on and take it out on Florida. I don't know. The last 2 games, we know Texas hasn't played well, right? The loss to Georgia, struggled with Vandy on the road. This may be a pound of flesh game at home, and they take it out of the backside of Florida.
Very good point about the scheduling spot there for the Gators as well. Before we get to some more questions, Mark, tell everybody what you've got up over at WagerTalk.com, where they can watch your show with BP. Anything else you want to promote? We've got about 27 minutes till kickoff, guys.
All right, number 1, morning wager every single morning. Check it out on the WagerTalk YouTube. It's quite the program. I sit there and I sell Brian Power for 20 minutes, and he takes it, and we have a couple of laughs, and we give out winners. Guys, the show is like since its inception at 67%. So you get 3 plays every day. They're all free right there. Make sure you check out the morning wager over at Wager Talks YouTube, and of course WT.buzz/MZ. 4 college plays on the card. If you missed the early one, we'll put them up again for the later afternoon slate. But 4% plays included in that 4-pack of college football plays for today. 67% since the beginning of October in college football.
Been absolutely crushing. You did the opposite of me. I got killed in October, so I'm hoping for a better November. Sammy Holt, Mr. Zinno, what is the inflatable Grinch play of the day? What the hell is an inflatable Grinch?
So if you were listening, I was doing ESPN earlier. I'm putting up Christmas lights today, which some people look as a faux pas, but it's a free weekend. It's 70 degrees outside. It's not going to be cold. I'm going to put them up. I'm not necessarily going to put them on. I do have an inflatable Grinch that hangs from the side of the house with the dog. It looks like the Grinch is going to steal all my children's presents. So the inflatable Grinch play of the day. Look, I'll give it to you, and you're not going to like it. Army, North Texas, under 65. When Bryson Daly is back, if Army has any shot at winning this game, they have got to control the flow of the game. They have got to be able to control the line of scrimmage and plod and just go down the field methodically and everything else, because we'll find out really how good Army's defense is against the mean green here, Kelly. And I know you're back in North Texas this week. And I would not lay 6 with Army on the road. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they win. If they do win this game, by the way, they clinch a spot in the American Athletic Championship game, which could be against Navy. And then we get Army-Navy 2 weeks in a row, which is also quirky. But this number is way too high. It really, if Army has any chance of winning this game, they have got to slow the pace down. They can't let North Texas continually touch the ball and score quick. I think they do that here. I think this is an insanely high total where everything has to go right. When you get to these high 60 totals, Kelly, it's one of those things where really all you need is 1 stop and 1 field goal in 8 possessions, and you should be good, right? If each team gets 1 stop and holds them to 1 field goal out of the 8 possessions they get, do the math, you're good enough. So I think we stay under here.
Interesting. That is the very contrarian because, of course, nobody wants to take anything on that under. Andrew Zufelt wants to know thoughts on the over in the Miami Georgia Tech game. They could score a ton of points and they can't stop a JUCO team on defense. I think Georgia Tech is going to run all over Miami. I'm not very happy to hear that the Westgate needs Miami in this one. I never like to hear that side of things. I kind of have to wonder how this one's truly going to play out.
We have confirmation that Haynes King is playing for Georgia Tech.
Yes.
Okay. So if he's playing, then, this over is live. The problem here is that, again, like this was, it was 2 weeks ago whenever it was Miami, Louisville. I'm like, this thing's, I played the under. Oh my God, they scored 75 points because Miami keeps putting up almost 50 every single week. I just don't think that Georgia Tech is the defense that's going to be able to stop them from putting up 50 unless Miami beats themselves, right? Unless Miami does what they did against Virginia Tech early, they make mistakes and they keep the other team in the game. But still, even at that, look at the game against, I think it was Cal, where they had to score 35 points or whatever it was in the second half to come back and win the game, and they did it. So I don't know that Georgia Tech's defense is the one to do it. I'd have to, let me look at this here real quick, Kelly, because Georgia Tech's defensive coordinator is the coordinator, the D coordinator from Duke last year. And I'd have to go back and see what Duke did against, I don't even know if they played Miami last year to get an idea of whether he was able to contain it. But again, remember, completely different offense. Yeah, they didn't play last year, Duke and Miami. And even that, Cam Ward is here. So I know the system that the Georgia Tech DC is running, if it works, it works. It's just I wouldn't look to an under here.
Okay, fair enough. I could see that. Listen, Miami's been hanging on by the skin of their teeth for weeks, and that's because they're able to go down and score quickly. So you're absolutely right. The under is not going to bode well for Georgia Tech. Well, excuse me. If you like Miami, you want to bet the over. If you like Georgia Tech, I think you like the under because they're going to be able to eat up the clock and run the ball. GM9 wants to know if Mississippi State can keep it within 4 touchdowns. I'm like, Kelly, keep looking for dogs, but I think I'll be regretting it by halftime. Great work, WagerTalk team. What are you? You're having a connection. Are you okay?
Yes, because I talked about this game all week long. There's a video up on WagerTalk.com at WT.buzz/MZ. Did a video on this game. It's my free play of the week. Look, when this line came out, I thought it was a misprint. I could not for the life of me believe that odds makers had the balls to make Tennessee a 24-point favorite in this game. I know Mississippi State is bad, right? Like, I know that they are not a good team, and defensively they have a lot of flaws. But this is also a Tennessee team that hasn't outpaced a single SEC opponent at all. Tennessee has Georgia on deck. That's the game that they need to win. Are they really going to pour all their resources into beating Mississippi State here when they don't have to? Like, if anything, the best case is that they're pulling up and they're calling the dogs off late in the third quarter and fourth quarter because they're not going to risk getting anybody hurt when they got Georgia on deck. Not only that, Mississippi State has been a 3-touchdown dog 3 times this year. They've covered all 3 of them. So, like, this is just way too many points. It's an insane number. Now, I would tell you guys, if you bet Mississippi State, don't turn the TV on. Don't sit yourself in the agony of 3 hours of doing this. Put the bet down. Go put up Christmas lights like I am. Go do something else. Go for a run. Come back and check your score or check your account when it's done and see if there's money in it. That's the only way you do this. You should not subject yourself to 3 hours of this agony. No, you're going to die.
That's absolutely hilarious. I literally said that this morning, on another show. I said, you think I don't want to I'm not betting on Air Force. I'm betting against Fresno State, and I'm not watching 1 second of that game. Second. No, there are games that are enjoyable to watch, and there are games that is not going to be enjoyable if you have Mississippi State. Lemon Cake. Hi, Mark. After that tough loss to Texas Tech, do you trust Iowa State -2.5 at Kansas?
A lot of sharp people I've seen are on Kansas. I have no play in this record.
I don't know if I'm sharp, but I'm on Kansas.
I mean, yeah, you might have been one of those people I was referring to. The problem for me with Kansas is this, and I've watched Kansas a couple of times this year. My God, that offense is putrid. I mean, it's like a live abortion, man. Sometimes it's so frustrating to watch the inconsistency in Jaden Daniels' play. Not that Jaden, the other, college Jaden Daniels. I mean, so.
You mean Jalen? Jalen Daniels?
Jalen, it's good enough for me. You know who I'm talking about, the quarterback, that guy. Yeah, I mean, again, it's like they lose at home to UNLV and they put up 42 against Houston. It's such a level of inconsistency that it's hard for me to back here. But Iowa State is in that sort of double letdown spot, Kel, right? Like where their entire dreams for the season got crushed last week. And then now you got to go up on the road to a place theoretically with an easy opponent you should win. And then also it's just it feels like for me that Iowa State here, you know, if they can't get off the carpet early, like this is a game where I feel like it's by the end of the first quarter, I know exactly how the rest of the game's going to go. If Iowa State isn't up like 10-0, 14-0 after the first quarter, they may lose the game outright. And that's really what it boils down to here. So no play for me in this game.
Here's the reality. I think if you like Iowa State, you wait until late in the game because that's what KU does. They lose one-score games. I actually am going to go right after this, before the game starts. I'm going to bet Kansas first half. I'm going to bet more on Kansas first half than I am on the entire game because that is the reason why this team has 2 wins on the season is because they cannot close out a football game to save their lives. The statistical anomalies that are the University of Kansas football have been off the charts all season long. It doesn't matter if it was against K-State. It doesn't matter if it was against Illinois. This team does not win football games. Now, maybe they kind of crossed a threshold where they're going to start putting together some sequential wins for a moral victory. But I think the reality is this is a play against Iowa State, not necessarily a play on Kansas. I'm betting against all the teams that had their guts ripped out last weekend, whether it was Fresno State at Hawaii, whether it was Pitt at SMU, whether it was Iowa State, Texas Tech. That's what I'm betting on. I'm betting on absolute and utter heartbreak and carnage.
Here's the other thing about Kansas. Like, after Iowa State, it's BYU and Colorado. Like, they'd have to run the table to just make a bowl, so it's not happening.
They're not going to make a bowl.
Right. They're not going to make a bowl. They could give themselves a small glimmer of hope here by winning this game, but then they got to go to Provo for a night game, and BYU never loses night games at home in Provo, Utah. So, yeah, it's a bad spot for Kansas.
I would agree. All right, guys, we got about 17 minutes until kickoff. I'm going to take a couple more questions before we let you guys go. But first, I need you guys to do me a favor. Press the like button. Give us a thumbs up, whatever you got to do. We're here for you, answering all of your questions, taking you all the way up to kickoff every single Saturday. I'm bringing in the hottest handicappers each week, not the same old guys, the guys who are winning and proving that they deserve a spot on this show. We got VR from the look behind the computer screen. We've got Art DiCesare from the Westgate. So all of these guys deserve some love for sharing those, last minute details with all of you. Mark Zinno, I do not see any more questions. I'll give it probably another 90 seconds. Tell me what you got up over on WagerTalk and give me a play for today that almost made your card, but narrowly missed.
So I have 4 plays up the site, 2 4% best bets as well, included over at WT.buzz/MZ. Again, 67% since the beginning of October in college football. So we've been running pretty good over the course of the past month plus. So we hope to keep it going. But again, 4 plays over at WT.buzz/MZ. Yeah. So, when I wrote down my list this week, I had a variety of different things on there. The first game that jumped off the board to me more than anything, and I walked away from it, but was Arizona State at home minus, it was about 3. I think it was 3.5 earlier. It's actually come down a little bit here, which was sort of part of the reason why I'm glad I stayed off of it. But UCF here, they just snapped a 5-game losing streak in the middle of their season, beating up on Arizona last week. And they won 56-12. And I'm sitting here going, UCF going out on the road. They've played a bunch of close road games, but they've lost them all, with the exception of the game at TCU, where it was a last-second field goal missed by TCU that allowed Central Florida the win. So now that you're under a field goal, it may be a little bit more appetizing with Arizona State, despite the money coming in on UCF to bring this number down. But there's a lot of people who look at Arizona State and go, well, they're not real. That's not a real, that 6-2 that they are is not real. And also the fact that they just got a bowl eligible last week rather, maybe in a little bit of a letdown spot. I don't know. the way I look at it, Scatterbo is a dynamic back. They finally got some consistency at quarterback for Arizona State. They're playing a much better, more consistent brand of football here in their home, where they haven't lost a game all year long, and they've scored at least 27 in every single home game. Do I think UCF can get to 27 or 30 here? I don't. In fact, I would tell you that Arizona State probably gets in the mid-30s here in this game and should be able to control it. So take a look at Arizona State less than a field goal. I think you can play it now.
All right, Arizona State less than a field goal. Any other questions before I call it? One more. Thoughts on the Holy War? Rick White wants to know. BYU, Utah. I'm on the Utes. CT Bats texted me early in the week and goes, love the Utes. I'm like, you know what? I am with you. Even though BYU is unscathed, they will not be going into Saturday night. Look, you mentioned this BYU team and how much of an advantage they have in Provo. This Utes team just besides the Cam Rising stuff, because we know that was an intricate part of a big part of why they're where they are, but even more so, this team was projected to win the Big 12. Utes Twitter was losing their ever-living minds on people like me telling us that, there was like some Pac-12 hierarchy that we were going to somehow find out. I feel like it's like almost like they had bad karma coming into the Big 12. But this is a winnable game for them at home. We've seen it 3, 3.5, 4. I got 4 earlier. Now it's back down to 3. Zinno, tell me what you think, because I am starting to love the Utes.
Yeah, look, I mean, Utah, just because of the quarterback mess this year, has been a flat-out stay away. Like, I looked at the game, and I did the same thing. I would take Utah at home with the points. And then I remembered how much they botched this quarterback situation. I can't have any faith in an offense that can't routinely score 20 points. They haven't scored 20 points in 4 weeks. And the last time they did, they were at Oklahoma State, and they scored 22. Like, this is an offense that is unbackable, in my opinion. By the way, this is the first time Kyle Whittingham is going to win 9 games in like a decade. It's unreal. You could write down Utah for 9 wins every single year, and he's not going to get there this year. So I definitively wouldn't play BYU. Here's what I would do, though. And this may be a little bit me overthinking it here, Kel. I'd play Utah in the first half. Why? Because guess what? If they're not leading at halftime, they can't win the game. If they're down by 10 at half, they don't have the offense come back. The game's over. Like, I don't care that without some sort of something quirky happening, a pick six, a special teams touchdown, something out of the ordinary, that you don't go, well, I expect them to have a pick six in this game. Nobody does that when they handicap, right? That's an unforeseen play. Without that, Utah doesn't get back in it. They do not have an offense that can play catch up. So if they are not leading at half, if it is not a 10-7 game at half or something low scoring like that, right? How does Utah play catch up? They don't. If it's 14-3 at halftime, they're dead. Dead. Utah has no ability to get back in this game. So why sit through 3 hours of this when I can predetermine the outcome of the game by halftime? That's just kind of the way I look at it. I don't see Utah having any catch-up ability if they get down. And the last thing I want to do is sit through 2.5 hours to watch a 3-point game turn into a BYU touchdown to go ahead by 4 and lose the game by a point and then go throw up in a bucket and hit my head against the wall.
You guys can catch more euphemisms from Mark Zinno every single morning here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel with the Morning Wager, him and Brian Power, at Mark Zinno on all your social channels. Thank you guys for hanging out with us here on this beautiful Saturday. We'll be back tomorrow. I still have yet to find John Murray's replacement because he decided to go on vacation during football season. Of course, we got VR. And then Ronald Kabang still sitting on top over on WagerTalk in the NFL. So he's going to be back taking all of your questions. Hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday and a profitable one at that. See you tomorrow.